Good afternoon. How are you today? Well, it's raining out, so I am standing on a screened-in porch and able to speak with you and be dry at the same time. It's a long time since I was in New York on Sundays, and we get a huge, thick New York Times and find some cafe on Broadway, probably near Columbia, and read through the paper for hours, because that's what it takes to give the New York Times its due. And today, I managed to get out, and Holly and I had a cappuccino at a deserted place called Beans in the Belfry. It's a converted church for a useful function. It now supplies treats and coffee and occasional glasses of wine, and minstrels come and sing songs and so forth. But there were no minstrels there today and very few people, and we had a large couch to ourselves, and we went through the New York Times. And there is a wealth of things going on. But if you turn on the talking heads today, there is nothing going on except the campaign, and people don't know anything new to add, so they go round robin around the same things all the time. Now, the New York Times, at a point above the fold on the front page, talked about how Hamas in the Middle East picks up the bombs that don't go off that Israel hurls over there and repurpose them for their own war. Supposedly they also had tunnels that went into Israel where Israel kept some of its munitions. So they're a pretty feisty group. But the thing that's disturbing about that is a series of stories talking about how we're expanding operations, although our administration is saying we are not. Now, when you're talking about events in Iraq and Syria, that sounds to me like it's not in the Gaza Strip. It's not even in the north near Lebanon. And it is definitely across the barriers. We are also policing the shipping lanes, and it is us, U.S. is doing it. It's not we're not helping someone else. We're actually doing it ourselves. Now, is this all necessary? Should we be doing this? Well, I don't know. And I'm a little anxious that some people might like to push this to a full-fledged Mideast war. And I do not support that. And it's ironic that when we have what some might call a, quote, good war, we have what's happening in Ukraine and the progress and advantages that were made there because of perhaps a presidential contest and the stupid meanderings of the principal representative of the Republican Party, who seems on his way to getting the Republican nomination. He just doesn't want there to be anything that helps the Ukrainians. He's Putin's lapdog, I think you could say. And now, in the case of Israel, it's very interesting that the court in The Hague decided that there were offenses against the rules of war, and they didn't demand that there be a ceasefire. Instead, they said, well, I think, maybe you should do less killing of civilians. And as I'm saying this, apparently, though our national strata demands that we go for a two-state solution, that is, that there should be a representation in the area geographically and otherwise of Palestine, and there should be in the area a geography that is Israel. And Netanyahu has basically said he will not agree to a double state, and he's going to destroy Hamas. And Hamas is saying they're going to destroy Israel. What we have here is a failure to communicate. I've referenced it once before. You're familiar with it, and whether or not you would remember the the movie with Paul Newman, you would remember that exchange, which results in Newman being paid off in an existential way for having said we have a failure to communicate, proving that they don't. And we, in a way, have this military situation in which the same thing is going on. Now, turning around a little bit, I think one of the greatest victories for women generally and specifically and across a whole spectrum of positions that favor women is the conclusion of the Carroll trial with the huge penalty that Trump must pay. And now we wait and see if he can, and we wait and see if he can get the additional funds that are necessary to get the bonds to have an appeal. Now, locally, a woman who dressed up very convincingly as Carroll attended a party, and she had a huge pocketbook, and she had money coming out of it, or what was play money coming out of it. And women generally are celebrating this because if there is anything that bothers Trump, it is a woman with a mind, a woman with dignity, a woman who will fight, a woman who has resolve. And E. Carroll and her outstanding attorney, Roberta Kaplan, made a great team. And they're not the only ones, but they're the ones that are most visible to us. And those of you who heard her summation, and I didn't hear it, but I read it as it was put online, the way she encompassed the arguments that define the weakness and foul behavior of Trump, and in that particular case, and why a guy who's supposedly worth so many billions of dollars should have to pay, which would be a small amount of money given his great wealth. And wouldn't it be ironic that his great wealth is as phony as everything else about the guy, and he's liquid only, not like my account, $400 million or $200 million or $100 million. Who knows what he really has? Nobody knows anything about this guy. And we apparently never got anything out of the taxes that anybody in the public learns about except the nature of his lies, which is to increase the value of something when that serves him and decrease the value when that serves whatever the function is that he has in a financial situation. America is in a difficult place, and I hear the dialogue by Democrats, and I am a Democrat, true blue. My DNA is Democratic, but I am not above talking about how you be an effective Democrat, and coming on the air and talking about persuading Trumpers, I just do not understand it. And they say things like, the Trump people don't understand. What about this issue? What about that issue? When are they going to realize it is not the issues? It is a force. It is a chaos. It is an overthrowing, a revolution that's had its violent moments and may again, but basically to overthrow democracy as we know it and put this madman in charge of America. And you see it in the courtrooms, and we have a guy running around saying, I am immune, I can do anything. Well, does that sound autocratic? Does that sound dictatorial? I think so. We see his conduct in courtrooms. He's above it. He's arrogant. He walks out. He doesn't have to deal with that. And he's leading who? The rest of America in that direction. While he undermines the courts, while he undermines the three branches of government, while he basically insists on policies during the campaign that he figures will favor his election that compromise America. So there are a couple of things that are on my mind today when I'm not thinking of being wet, and I thought I would share them with you. And I hope that wherever you are, you're dry. And I think it may get colder tomorrow, but if it's only cold, I'll be out in the middle of it, and if it's impossible to walk around, I'll dig out some time to do a sit and talk instead of a stand and talk on an outcropping of my home that is protected by from the rain. So all the best. Good to visit with you. Have a terrific Sunday, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.